Hi, good evening everyone. Thank you for joining in. I'm Advocate Rishika Arora from India, and today I'm in the esteemed company of Director Julie Sculli of Columbia Law School. And today we will be talking about and discussing the Executive LL.M program, specially designed to enhance the professional skills, aptitude, and knowledge of lawyers in a cross-cultural environment. So, tell me, Julie, how did you come up with the Executive LL.M program, and can you just give us a basic information about the Executive LL.M program?
Sure. First, Rishika, thank you so much for having me, and welcome to New York and for being here. It's lovely to have you. So the Executive LL.M is Columbia's newest pathway to earning a Master of Laws degree here. And it's really designed to be a flexible and focused program for practicing lawyers. So it's for lawyers who have more experience, are further along in their careers, doing corporate global business law, or have found that that would be an area that they could expand in or are interested in a way that they can both maintain their current role and current job and position, but also seek the deepening of knowledge, expanding network, and the credential that an LL.M provides. So it allows them an opportunity to do both. And the way that the program is designed, they are 3 months here on campus and 3 months online. So it's a combination of using sort of the latest technology and learning tools so that they can study partly remote, and then partly here to still have the experience building the network and the community with Columbia Law School here during what is our summer months, so the end of May to the middle of August. Here on campus, being taught by our same full-time premier faculty, supported by our incredible network of adjuncts.
Yeah, so I think it's a great opportunity for the professionals who are into full-time career. They can, take few classes online, and then they are here for 12 weeks for doing the on-campus education program that they can get, and as well as then they go back onto online classes.
Exactly.
So it's a great program that's actually been designed for professionals, to be specific.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, that is exactly the part of the legal profession or legal community that's targeted with this program are the more seasoned, experienced professional lawyers who cannot step away because of professional or personal obligations from their jobs for 10 months or a year to come and do an on-campus program.
That's a great. I think it's a great program for professionals like you to actually come on board and deepen the knowledge, basically. So, but there are some general questions I think all the LL.M applicants all around the world would be having, but here specifically we are actually targeting like Indian students as well as the professionals. So the general questions that I had a survey asked, and I asked them about it. So they came up with some questions which I'm going to be asking you. So what are the advantages of doing an LL.M, basically?
The advantages of an LL.M, I think, are threefold. One is just the deepening of your knowledge and your expertise in an area. And because the Executive LL.M is focused in global business law, it's really the deepening of the knowledge in that area, which helps you with your expertise and knowing kind of everything there is to know about that certain area of law. Another is really expanding your network, and it really is a global community now. I know the statistic is quite high as to the number of lawyers who will do a cross-border or have interactions with other lawyers from around the world, and so it's really important to have that network of lawyers around the world that you can call on or contact with issues related to a particular case, or also sometimes there's cultural issues where I have a deal with a certain country or a certain client, and I could really use some advice on how best to do that. And then also the LL.M is still an important credential. So it's an important credential, and it lends credibility. It lends credibility to you, to your client. Your clients then look at lawyers differently. It shows like a growth mindset. That you're still learning and trying to expand your knowledge base. So I think there's a lot of advantages to doing the LL.M, and they're all equally important professionally and personally.
I remember, because I'm an alumni of Columbia Law School myself, so I also took this course that was cross-border transactions, and it really helped me, develop my knowledge about how to deal with, clients who are not just within the boundaries of India, and in case you have a company that you want to establish in other, in a country, like your own client wants to establish a company in another country. I think it was a great experience to learn about the intricacies involved, the legal intricacies involved in the cross-border transactions. I think it's a great platform for people who want to, expand in their global business law knowledge.
I mean, I think that's exactly right. And one of the other things about this program in particular is what we've tried to do is pull the most important and rapidly changing aspects of business. So
Yes.
not divorced from law, but business as a part of the legal profession,
right.
And how as lawyers we're expected to know more in the business field. Your clients are expecting you to be more of a strategy partner,
Exactly.
and not just an advisor or a
Right.
counselor, and not just about risk and liability. It's also about how do we move the mission or the purpose of the business forward, and I need my counsel to help advise on that. So lawyers are needed to be tasked with more information about the business realm, and oftentimes we graduate from our law study and we don't really know a lot about the business. It's what we pick up on the job, but this we try to incorporate a lot of different aspects of business that's also really important that will help move your career forward.
Yeah, that's true. So should I, if an applicant comes to you and asks about that, should I pursue the LLM from India or should I do it from abroad? What would be your suggestion to that applicant?
I think one of the advantages of pursuing the LLM, if you're an Indian student that's graduated with your first degree in law from India, one of the advantages of pursuing it from abroad is that now you have a different perspective. You now have had this cross-cultural experience, created a global network, and now you've been able to approach the law from a different place. So instead of learning, the same way in the same kind of system, you now have had exposure to a different kind of system. And I think that just expands the way you approach a legal issue. So it's no longer you approach it from one way, the way that you've learned, originally or initially. You now have a different perspective. So I think that that's one of the real advantages. And plus there's a lot of personal advantages to coming to the U.S. and studying, or just being a part of a program where there's people from all over the world studying together. And in the United States, we study, it's a very distinct and unique in a lot of ways way to study law. And so I think that just helps grow your mind and the way that you can be more creative about the way that you approach legal issues.
And what are the future career perspectives an applicant can look forward to when applying for executive LLM program?
So this question, I think, depends a lot on individual circumstances. Our students come to us all at different kind of places in their careers, all with experience or are more seasoned lawyers, but all with different ideas about where they want to go. Whether it's they want upward mobility in their current organization, they'd like to make partner, whether they'd like more responsibility, whether they're looking to do a lateral move, a country move. I mean, I think a lot of it is just very individual. But what we do here is work with them on an individual basis. I think it's more like coaching than it is like career service.
Right.
Yeah, because we try to work, where are you at? Where would you like to go? And how can we support you on that journey? So we have a career counselor that works with the students individually. And then we also do a great amount of programming, group programming, during the residency portion when the students are here on campus. To work with them, and it's leadership skills and management, executive presence.
Right.
It's really trying to, at the more mid to senior level, the sorts of issues that you would encounter professionally there, and how can we help you grow, in that respect.
So it's basically, it develops, it enhances your skills. The program helps you enhance your skills. Of course, giving you a cross-cultural environment where you can grow, network. And the career prospect, of course, it's an individual basis how you want to take it and where you want to take it. But you provide the resources
Exactly.
to take your career to the next level.
Exactly. And then you're part of the Columbia Law School family, too, at that point, which we have alumni all over the world, which I think just helps expand your, again, your network of people that then you can go to and rely on. And then you meet someone and immediately you have something in common.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, you also, yes. It ties connection
that you build all over the world. It's a global connection that you build. And I think it's a great opportunity that, for alumni like me also, I can just approach to any country and, I can write it on my social media, I can email it to the Columbia alumni, and everyone's ready to help.
Right.
And everyone's there for you and, to guide you, to help you, to take you, forward in your career. And I think another major aspect anybody would look into while applying for LLM is the finances, like financial aspect of it. What is the fee structure? Are there any scholarships available that Columbia is offering for the executive LLM, or any other scholarships that you might, help the professionals that they can avail to?
Right. Financing is a very important question. Certainly studying at Columbia is an investment. It should be seen as an investment in your future, an investment in your potential. We have a very detailed fee structure on our website, which I really encourage people to look at and to consider thoughtfully. There's a total estimated cost of attendance. For the executive LL.M program, the one benefit to the shorter residency period is that there's less living expenses. Yes, and that's all detailed on our website. So I'd like to just refer people there for the details, because I think it's an important thing to not generalize. I mean, you should really look at all of the line items that are there. There is no scholarship available for the program, but we do have a host of financing opportunities that are also on the website, just underneath the tuition and fees link. And I really encourage people to deep dive in those, because there's a lot of opportunity for scholarship and funding from independent sources that you just have to do a little bit more legwork. Research to find. But you can certainly apply to a number of those. Some of them have certain characteristics that you must meet in order to be eligible. But it's worth exploring and looking at. And one last note on this is that we have had past students that have had employer sponsorship. So it's something that I think is worth people just keeping in mind and considering, that if you're in a position where perhaps your employer is really supportive, and a lot of employers are very supportive of this program because it does allow you to stay tethered to your employer and to work while you're studying at the same time. And so they're supportive of this and realize that the dividends that it will pay in the future are great. And so it's something to think about and explore.
I think it's important for the employers also to have an associate that has wider span of knowledge, a deepened, in-depth knowledge about a particular subject. It helps the firm also, and the employers, of course, they're very supportive. And I remember when I visited the Columbia Law School page, the executive LLM page to be specific, there was a list of scholarships that the Columbia also referred to that the applicants can actually apply for. I mean, of course, the scholarship is not guaranteed, but the applicants can go and apply for those scholarships to get the scholarship funding from there.
And these are from independent sources. So there's like an independent sources page. And one other thing, Rishika, I should mention about the tuition is it does, for the executive LL.M program, cover all of your books and course materials, which is nice, and they are pricey here in the U.S. The textbooks are quite expensive. So the tuition does cover those, as well as your breakfast and lunch during the residency, which does add up, and it's nice that it's just kind of taken care of. So when you're here studying during the residency, we try to make it just a really easy experience, and that you can focus on the work, because that's difficult, and not have to spend as much time with the life admin part of it. So you can come here, your breakfast is taken care of, your lunch is taken care of while classes are in session.
So the part of living expenses
is also covered by your tuition and fees. So these are all, these are all little parts that add up, but are things that are important to consider.
And if I see at the application, as an applicant, if I'm applying to Columbia Law School for the executive LL.M program, how exactly should one, devise the application? How should I prepare for the application?
So my biggest piece of advice on preparing for the application is to plan in advance, to make sure that you have considered the time it takes to compile the parts of your application together. I think it's part of human nature that you procrastinate, you wait till the last minute. But this is one thing that does take time. And so I think that that's the most important thing to emphasize, The application process is fairly straightforward. It is in the United States. We have an agency called the Law School Admission Council who facilitates applications to U.S. law schools. And so at Columbia, we require you apply through LSAC for short. That's their acronym. You apply through LSAC, who handles what on our end is an electronic application process, which requires you complete an application form, you upload a personal statement and a resume, and then that part doesn't necessarily take a lot of time. It's the having your transcripts sent from every institution that you've studied at, your first degree in law, and if you've earned any graduate degrees also, those documents sent directly to LSAC. That can take time because having the institution process those, submit them, and then are mailed then to LSAC. So it's just really important to plan in advance. Also, if you're not a native English speaker, so this isn't necessarily as big an issue for Indian students, especially coming from very urban and major areas. But in parts of the world, if you're not a native English speaker, we have our TOEFL requirement, and so you have to plan in advance for that. So it's mostly, my advice is just make sure you know what the requirements are and you plan accordingly.
But the person who's actually applying for it can ask for an exemption also, for the TOEFL score exemption or the submission of the TOEFL.
Correct. So we have a TOEFL waiver process. So if you're a native English speaker, you studied law and English, and this is most Indian students, you just submit an email to our office and with your background and then there's a TOEFL waiver. Exactly.
Right. Also about the letter of recommendations also have to be sent to the LASAC, which is the LSAC, and the website is there, and Columbia Law School requires you to apply through LSAC. That is one of the requirements. And if I'm talking about the application process, I would also want to know about the review. How does the graduate legal studies or your office actually reviews an application today? If I'm an applicant, what would you see in an application?
Yep, so the Executive LL.M Admissions Committee, because we review applications from all over the world, there's not a lot of quantitative factors that we look at, so we really do a holistic review. And I know a lot of people use that term. It's really meaningful here because we have to strive to understand where people come from, the system that they studied at, the difficulty of the systems that they come from, what their work experience means, the substance of it, the quality of it, the quantity of it. There are a lot of factors that are very individual to countries and to different kinds of backgrounds. And so we really do strive to know the applicants as individuals and what they'll bring to our community, and every part of the application is really important to do that. So each part serves a different purpose: the resume, the personal statement, the letters of recommendation, the academic transcripts, and the application itself, and the TOEFL and the English proficiency. So all of those parts are considered together to create a whole picture that then we consider about what that person will bring to the community here.
Since we are talking about the application and all the step-by-step, the essentials of the application, I think I would want the applicants to know more about what you consider in something like a resume or a statement of purpose, maybe going one by one. How important is a resume for the LL.M application?
The resume is very important. That kind of gives us a timeline of what you've done. This is like your life timeline, as an adult, as a professional. And so I think the most important thing about the resume is just making it clear and easy to read. There are lots of templates and samples of U.S. style. That's what we're used to seeing, and that is a clear format. So if you want to revise yours to look, in that format, I think it's a wise idea. If you've had more work experience, I would put that first and highlight that, and then put your education underneath it. But again, the most important thing is that it's just everything is laid out clearly. And make sure that things are explained clearly. If there are gaps anywhere, it's important then to use your personal statement to support that, to explain the gaps. And just to make sure that we can follow your timeline clear. You don't want the reader to be left saying, I don't really understand what that person did for this 2 years. Exactly. Right. So you really just want to present your information clearly in a straightforward way.
Taking cue from the SOP. So, what exactly is a statement of purpose, and what does the what do you look into when a person comes up with a statement of purpose when they're applying for it? What is a statement of purpose?
So we allow people to write about whatever. Some schools will have a prompt, so you have to write about a particular topic, and so you certainly want to stick to the prompt if you're asked. But we give you a lot of liberty to write about whatever it is you'd like to write about, with some formatting guidelines. So I always say that you can do an effective personal statement in a page. You really can. No more than 2 pages. So you don't have to, write on and on and on. It can be because the personal statement really does 2 things. One, the purpose should be to tell us a story about yourself. It kind of ties all the parts of your application together. So now we really know who you are. We strive to know you as an individual, your core, and that allows us to do that. So it's not an opportunity to then just tell us again everything that's already in your resume or already in your application. Right. Don't waste it on that. And a lot of people do. They'll just say what they'll recite the same facts that are in their resume. When what we really want is a story. You tell us a story about who you are and tie your other parts of your application together. And the second purpose it serves is to show us how you write, organize in English. So your thought process, how you structure, how you organize. And so take time to make sure that it's perfect. There are no typos, no grammatical errors. That's really important because it tells us how you'll communicate in writing as a student as well.
I think one of the most important aspects while I was writing my statement of purpose was to get it reviewed from people. To make them read it and to, so that they can point out if there's something lacking, if there is an experience, if I'm trying to justify the years that I've lapsed in the curriculum vitae, whether I'm justifying my purpose there or not. And I think statement of purpose for me was the most time consuming of what I did for my application to Columbia Law School. But it did serve me well.
Right. Well, that means you were putting proper thought into it. Yes. It should take some time. It should be thoughtful. And don't miss that opportunity because it's very important. They are all read entirely. And so it's good to be thoughtful and take time.
I think coming to the fact that why do we need to write a statement of purpose is because you have applicants coming from all around the world, and it's very difficult to interview each applicant, or is it you cannot call each applicant to interview them personally? So do you conduct something like a phone call interview or any other exams that executive LL.M program might require for the students to prepare for?
We really try to interview a lot of our applicants, and the volume of applicants doesn't always permit that, but we do like to because we have a smaller, tight-knit program, it is important for us to know the individuals. It's important for us to create a cohesive group, people who are at a similar level and that they will all be able to learn from each other. They'll have the same sophistication of conversation in a classroom that's important to us. So because of that, it is important for us to try to get to know them. So we do, and we actually do it online by video. So we get to see the face, and that just we get to know you more as an individual. That's really important to us. We have a small program, and we're close-knit, and so we want to create this environment.
And the applicants are from around the world.
And they're from all over the world.
Yes. And there's no entrance test, that is what I understand.
Yes, no, I'm sorry, Rishika, that was another part of your question. No standardized entrance exam like the LSAT or nothing like that. There is none of those.
Okay. And how important are a professional's grades for this program? Because we are an executive LL.M program, so obviously grades in the scorecard is very important. You have to submit it through LSAC, the transcripts that you have to send. So how important the grades are to any applicant?
Your academic performance is very important, and this is Columbia Law School, and the academic standards are quite high, so they're very important. But your work experience is also important. So like I said, all aspects of the application are really important. So the academics are, I do get this question a lot, and people will say, well, what does graduation with honors mean, or what does a stellar academic record mean? They want more specifics about what that means. But doing well is really important to the institution and to our putting together a student body. What I will say is if you feel like you're deficient in a certain area, use the personal statement or an addendum to explain that. And some people will have graduated, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
their work experience has been fantastic since then, and that's important too.
So the work experience then in that case speaks more than their academic performance, because it's been 20 years and they've been doing very well in their own professional careers. And of course, it's the executive LL.M program for the professionals. So of course, everything has to be weighed, and each applicant brings its own uniqueness to it.
Exactly. And then I think then you just spend a lot of time emphasizing your work experience.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you can still explain, but we understand.
Right.
And we understand. So.
And how much work experience is there? Is there a minimum work experience that the executive LL.M program requires?
Yeah, so approximately 5 years. And I say approximately because that's just some people can have 4 years and then they also interned for 3 years and they have really substantial, so it's more about quality than quantity, but we want everyone to be at a similar level and that they all they have a different perspective and can bring something to the classroom.
So one last question I would ask. What are the basic qualifications that you look for an Indian applicant, to be very specific, because we are addressing Indians here? So what are the basic qualifications that you look in an application for an Indian applicant to say?
So at the basic level, a first degree in law is required. So a first degree in law, you have studied law and that you have practiced for a period of time, approximately 5 years. So that, I think, is sort of at the very basic level. And then above and beyond that, it's really what you're doing, what your interest is in doing the executive LL.M program, and what you will bring to our community. So I wouldn't say necessarily there's something specific to an Indian applicant, only that we really look for diversity in our class. We want students from all over the world. So there won't be 50% of the class as Indian students. You will be, one of a select number from that region of the world, so that we have a real nice diversity, cultural diversity, and different perspectives and viewpoints. Last year, our students came from 5 continents, and the idea was that we had people represented from all over, because it just makes the learning experience more fruitful and productive. And it helps you broaden the way that you think, and you stretch a little bit more when you are sitting alongside someone that's had a also.
If a professor wants to apply, a legal professor wants to apply to Columbia, so that a professor can also apply for this executive LL.M program?
As long as they meet the basic eligibility criteria.
The
so as long as, the first degree in law and the work experience, then yes. And we have had partners and in-house counsel, and
That's amazing.
yes.
So you get to learn from people at different levels of their career, and you get to learn from the experience professionally, personally. Of course, that there will be somebody who's had experience for 20 years, or 10, or 5. So you get to learn from each other.
And I'll tell you, our faculty really also learn from the students in this program as well, because they're practitioners, so people are practicing, they've had a lot of years of experience, and they bring a very practical oriented approach to the room, which our faculty really enjoy engaging with, which is fun for them as well. So they'll learn from the faculty, but the faculty will also learn from the students. So come with the idea that you bring a lot to the classroom also, and we're really kind of depending on you to make it a productive environment.
Well, I think it has been a very informative session. Thank you so much, Julie, for joining in and addressing Indian professionals and students here. For any other query that you have in reference to the LL.M program, then you can get in touch with exec.LL.M@law.columbia.edu, or you can also write an email to gls@law.columbia.edu. Well, thank you everyone for joining it. It has been a great session, and I hope it has helped a lot of you and have actually answered a lot of questions that you addressed to us. Thank you so much.
Alright, video has ended. I will just hand over for safety.